I've always believed that family is the one constant in life, the foundation that supports you no matter what. But as I sit here now, recounting everything that's happened, I'm forced to question if that belief was ever true. My name is Sarah, and the past year has been a whirlwind of betrayal, manipulation, and heartbreak, all stemming from the people I once trusted most. It began with a phone call. My younger brother, Daniel, reached out to me one evening, sounding unusually desperate. He explained that he had fallen behind on his mortgage payments and was at risk of losing his home. Daniel had always been the golden child, the one my parents doted on, while I worked hard to prove my worth. Despite the disparity in how we were treated, I cared for him deeply. He was my little brother, after all. Without hesitation, I offered to help. "How much do you need?" I asked, bracing myself for a significant number. "Just $10,000, he said, his voice almost trembling. "I promise I'll pay you back once I'm back on my feet." I transferred the money the very next day, not even questioning his sincerity. Daniel had always been reckless with money, but this time I convinced myself that he truly needed help. Weeks turned into months, and while I didn't hear much from him, I assumed he was handling his situation. That was until my mother called me with a concerned tone. "Have you spoken to Daniel recently?" she asked. "Not for a while," I admitted. "Why? Is something wrong?" "Well, it's just... I heard he's planning to buy a new car," she said, her words careful but deliberate. My heart sank. A new car? How could he even think about that when he claimed he was struggling to keep his house? I tried to dismiss it as a misunderstanding, but doubt began creeping in. I decided to confront him directly. When I called Daniel, his tone was defensive from the start. "Why are you asking about my finances?" he snapped. "Because I gave you $10,000 to save your house, not to buy a car," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "The car is for work. I need reliable transportation to earn a stable income." Something about his explanation felt off, but I didn't press further. Maybe he was telling the truth, I thought. I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. But the nagging feeling in my gut refused to go away. A few weeks later, I received another call, this time from my father. He's a man of few words, but his tone was unusually somber. "Sarah, we need to talk about your brother," he began. "Your mother and we're worried about his behavior. He's been evasive lately, and there are rumors that he's gambling again." Gambling. The word hit me like a punch to the stomach. Years ago, Daniel had fallen into trouble with gambling debts, and it had nearly torn our family apart. He had promised us all that he'd changed, that he'd never go down that path again. Could it really be happening again? I decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, I reached out to some mutual friends, subtly asking about Daniel's recent activities. What I learned confirmed my worst fears. Daniel had been frequenting a local casino, and there were whispers that he owed money to some unsavory characters. My $10,000 hadn't gone to save his house. It had likely fueled his addiction. When I confronted him with this information, he didn't deny it. Instead, he lashed out at me, accusing me of spying on him and not trusting him. "You don't understand what I'm going through," he yelled. "It's easy for you to judge from your perfect little life." His words stung, but I refused to let him deflect. "I trusted you, Daniel," I said firmly. "I helped you because I believed you were in genuine need, not because I wanted to fund your gambling." He hung up on me, and for weeks, we didn't speak. I tried to focus on my own life, but the situation with Daniel loomed over me like a dark cloud. My mother's constant attempts to mediate only made things worse. "He's your brother, Sarah," she would say. "Family sticks together no matter what." But how could I stick by someone who had lied to me so blatantly? someone who showed no remorse for betraying my trust. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. One evening, my mother called me in tears. "Sarah, I need your help," she sobbed. "Your father and I are in trouble. We're behind on our mortgage, and the bank is threatening to foreclose on the house." I was stunned. My parents had always been careful with money, or so I thought. How could this have happened? "We trusted Daniel to handle some of our finances," she admitted reluctantly. "He said he could help us invest and grow our savings, but it all went wrong." It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Not only had Daniel squandered my money, but he had also jeopardized my parents' financial stability. Anger and betrayal bubbled inside me, but I pushed them down. My parents needed me, and I couldn't turn my back on them. Over the next few weeks, I helped them negotiate with the bank and develop a plan to stabilize their finances. It was exhausting, both emotionally and financially, but I couldn't bear the thought of them losing their home. Meanwhile, Daniel remained conspicuously silent. He didn't call to apologize or offer any explanation for his actions. It was as if he had disappeared completely. One night, as I was sorting through some old family documents, I came across something that made my blood run cold. It was a letter from Daniel to my parents, written years ago when he was struggling with his gambling addiction. In it, he admitted to forging my father's signature to take out a loan. The letter ended with a desperate plea for forgiveness and a promise to change. I confronted my parents with the letter, and their reaction confirmed my suspicions. They had known about Daniel's deceit all along, but had chosen to keep it from me. "We didn't want to burden you," my father said quietly. "We thought we could handle it on our own." Their decision to shield Daniel had only enabled his behavior, and now we were all paying the price. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Daniel, but at my parents as well. Why had they allowed this to continue for so long? Why hadn't they held him accountable? As the weeks went by, the strain of the situation began to take its toll. My once close relationship with my parents grew tense, and I found myself withdrawing from them. The trust that had been shattered was not easily rebuilt. Then, out of the blue, Daniel called me. His voice was uncharacteristically subdued. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said. "I know I've hurt you and the family. I've been going to therapy and trying to get my life back on track." I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't ignore the pattern of lies and manipulation that had defined our relationship. "Actions speak louder than words, Daniel," I replied. "If you're truly sorry, you'll find a way to make things right." He promised he would, but weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. The apologies stopped, and once again, he faded into the background. It became clear that Daniel's words were just that, words. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize that family is not about blind loyalty. It's about mutual respect and trust. Without those things, even the strongest bonds can crumble. My relationship with Daniel is strained beyond repair, and my connection with my parents will take years to mend. But through it all, I've learned an important lesson. Sometimes, you have to let go of toxic relationships, even if they're with family. It's not an easy choice, but it's necessary for your own well-being. I don't know what the future holds for me and my family, but one thing is certain. I won't allow myself to be manipulated again. The scars of betrayal may never fully heal, but they've made me stronger, wiser, and more determined to protect my peace. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. Therapy became an essential part of my routine, helping me process the anger and sadness that lingered. My therapist taught me how to set boundaries, a skill I had long neglected when it came to my family. For the first time, I felt empowered to say no without guilt. My parents, too, began to reflect on their role in enabling Daniel's behavior. My father admitted that he'd always turned a blind eye because he didn't want to confront the truth. "I thought I was protecting the family," he said one evening. "But I see now that I was only making things worse." Their acknowledgement was a small step toward healing, but the damage done over the years was not easily undone. Trust takes time to rebuild, and while I'm open to the possibility of mending our relationship, I know it won't happen overnight. As for Daniel, I've chosen to keep my distance. Occasionally, I hear updates about him through mutual friends. He's still attending therapy, but he's far from the redemption he promised. Part of me hopes he finds his way, but I've learned not to stake my happiness on his choices. Instead, I've turned my focus inward. I've started pursuing hobbies I'd long neglected, like painting and gardening. These simple pleasures remind me that life is still beautiful, even amidst chaos. I've also deepened my relationships with friends who've been a constant source of support. They've shown me what it means to be truly loved and valued. Looking back, I can see that this experience, as painful as it was, has shaped me in profound ways. I've grown stronger, more resilient, and more self-assured. I've learned that it's okay to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you, even if it means letting go of people you once held dear. Life is unpredictable, and the people you think you can count on may not always be there for you. But I've also learned that resilience comes from within. No matter what challenges come my way, I know I have the strength to face them head-on. And that, above all else, gives me hope for the future. The road ahead won't be easy, but it's a journey I'm ready to take, one step at a time.